Welcome to Tuesday Talks. I am so pleased to introduce our guest today, Lynne Tobin. Lynne is a professional musician. She's a wonderful cellist, and she has also been an educator for, I think, something like 40 years. She has taught in the classroom music education. Her connection with Great Lakes Chamber Orchestra is through one of our educational outreach programs. But before we get into that, I would like to introduce Lynne and have her tell us a little bit about herself. Lynne, welcome.
Thank you, Judy. I really appreciate your inviting me to be on your Tuesday Talks. This is a lot of fun. Well, a little bit about myself. As you said, I am a cellist, a professional cellist. I have 2 degrees in cello performance. My undergraduate degree is from the University of Michigan, and my graduate degree in performance is from Northern Illinois University. I had intended to be a cellist with an orchestra, a performing artist. I had no education background in terms of teaching. I had not taken any education classes when I was at university. But one of my first jobs in Savannah, Georgia, as principal cellist of the Savannah Symphony, I was approached by a parent at Savannah Country Day School, and she had this idea to start a string program at the school. So I was hired to teach there, and I developed a string program that is still going at that school to this day. And once I started to teach, I found that it was something that I love to do, and I seemed to be pretty good at it. So that ended up being my career for 40 years. I taught orchestral strings, so like beginning strings, violin, viola, cello, and bass. And I did that at Savannah Country Day School. They had this fabulous program that was literally 2nd grade through 12th grade strings. So it was really fun. And then I moved to Ann Arbor, Michigan in 1994, continued a string program there at the Emerson School, which is a private school. And then I was approached in 2000, around 2001, 2001, by Interlochen Center for the Arts. They had recently merged with a local day private school for pre-kindergarten through 8th grade students called the Pathfinder School. And they were looking for a teacher for to teach general music, pre-K through 8th grade, and also start a string program at their school. And I had never taught general music. I was not trained to teach general music. I'm not a singer. I don't play piano, all the things that you need to do. But I was familiar with the ORF approach to teaching music to children. And I had worked with some really excellent ORF educators at some of my previous private schools that I worked at. And so I was intrigued by that. I was turning 50. I was at a place where I wanted to try something new, for myself. And when Interlochen calls, it's hard to say no. So I took some ORF certification courses in the summers, couple of summers. I visited the school. I spent a lot of time at Interlochen, and then my husband and I decided to make the move. So we moved to Traverse City in 2002, and I taught at the Pathfinder School very happily until I retired 2 years ago. So I was there for 16 years.
Oh, that is wonderful. And it's fortunate for us that you made that move up here, and through the wonders of Zoom and technology, here we are on this Tuesday Talk with Lynne being in the Traverse City area, and of course I'm in Petoskey. But I think there's no question, with all the studies that have been done about the benefits of music education in early childhood, and certainly your wealth of experience over 40 years, it seems like learning if you can say, the do, re, mi's helps children excel in the ABCs. And with that in mind, and of course with the wonderful help that you've given us, we have started, the Great Lakes Chamber Orchestra has started a music education program for early childhood, for very young children. And we have called that the Young Children's Library series. And we have just completed our second year, and you were part of that program from the very beginning. And we looked at the educational outreach programs that the orchestra was providing for the community, and there was a hole in this age group with younger children. And so we felt if we could have a continuum and start them at a younger age, and then we touch them again in middle school, elementary school and middle school, and again in high school, what a wonderful continuum of music education. So with that, going back to our Young Children's Library program, can you tell us a little bit about what drew you to that, and exactly what you do with the program and how that works?
Sure. Yeah, I was thrilled when you originally called me and asked me to be part of the program, because I had just retired at that point, and I was trying to figure out, how I was going to continue to use my talents and give back to the community. And so this was something I had never done, to host a children's program like this, but I felt like my skill set was pretty appropriate.
Yeah.
So what I do for the program is I host and facilitate the entire program for the children at the library. So our first year was at the Petoskey Area Public Library. And my job on the day of the actual performance is to welcome the children when they arrive to the multipurpose room for the concert. These are young children. They're mostly preschool, kindergarten, first grade age, and which was a little bit younger than we originally anticipated. But that's fine, because parents of children that age, we're discovering all the time, are looking for opportunities for these young children to be exposed to music. So it's a perfect age, and it's a lot of fun to work with them. So I welcome the children. I invite them to come in. They're generally a little bit, apprehensive about coming into a new space with new adult people. I try to engage them right away, introduce myself to them individually when they come in, try to get their names, maybe talk about something about what they're wearing, to just kind of engage them in a personal way. I invite them to come close and sit on the carpet close to the musicians, our guest musicians. And then I sing a welcome song, and it's the same song every program, so that it's a really familiar way for the kids to settle in. This year, the second season, I actually taught them the chorus of the song so that they could sing along. So it became a little.
That was wonderful.
Well, it was fun. It was really fun to engage them in that way. Then after we finished the welcome song, we put on our invisible concert coats.
I have my concert coat on today, Lynn.
No, I should have worn mine. I'd always wear the same concert coat. And we talk about how musicians generally get dressed up in black and white, and often they wear a coat, a concert coat, and how, as a musician, I feel a little bit different when I get dressed up and put on my concert clothes. They can also wear a special coat to remind them that this is a special occasion. So we go through very elaborate, putting on of our concert coats. But we also talk about audience etiquette and behavior while we're doing that. So once you have your concert coat on, you have to remember that now it's time to watch and to listen with your very best listening ears. And we talk about what it means to be a good audience member, to not talk during the performance, and that's great. So every time they put on their concert coat, if they come to every series or repeated performances with us, they remember when they put on their concert coat, it's time to behave in that way. So
it's fun to see that too.
It is fun, and also it's fun to brainstorm with the kids. What does it mean to be a good audience member, so that they can immediately raise their hands and remind us of things like not talking while the adults are playing and things like that. So once we get them all settled down with their concert coats on, the next step is I read a book, and it's a book that is chosen by myself and usually coordinated with Megan Goji, who is the librarian, who is the specialist with children's literature at the Petoskey Area Public Library. So we find a book that meets the theme. So if it's, for example, if it's brass players, trumpet and trombone going to be our musician guests, then I'll try to have a book that has a child who learns to play the trumpet or something like that. So we engage the kids in that way and bring in the literature. After the book, I turn the program over to our guest musicians. They perform for the children. They've been great about engaging the kids. During that time, I facilitate things like movement. If the kids can move while they're playing, or if they can just clap their hands or pat their legs or something like that. And I also, because our guests are so young, our children, I also facilitate if they start to go towards the musicians to touch the instruments. I, make sure that everybody's sitting safely on the ground and just
right. Unless it's Tim Mockney with percussion, and then they can play and participate with touching and playing.
That's right. And we do always try to have if it's possible, we try to have something that they can play or some way that we can engage them. If somebody's playing a 200-year-old violin, it's not the best instrument to share, but we try to have some way for the kids to be engaged all the time, because at that age, they do want to participate, and that's exactly age appropriate for them.
So this past season now, we had a theme, and the theme was building blocks of music.
Right, building blocks of music. Our first year, we did just introduction to the families of instruments. Yeah. So our first season was all about each program that we had introduced either the family of stringed instruments or the family of brass, woodwinds, percussion, and voice, which I love, which, not all programs include the voice, which is the instrument that you carry with you. And as a singer, of course, you've been our guest musician for the voice, so we know how important that is.
It's been fun.
But this year, with the building blocks of music, we did something a little bit different. Although we had those different families of instruments as guest performers, we also introduced the vocabulary of music. So one week it was tempo, fast and slow. So our guest musicians played examples of music to demonstrate that. Another month it was range, high and low. We also had melody and harmony. We had articulation, smooth and legato, or short and staccato. So it was a way of also teaching the elements of music that you really can't start too early to learn. And it was another way to engage the kids.
And interesting, I think, I saw many or most of the parents were also very engaged.
It's interesting, Judy, right at this moment, my 94-year-old mother is living with us. She's from Chicago, but she's living with us here in Michigan during the quarantine time. And I was telling her about this program, and she said, I wish so that I had a program like that to take you to when you were little and before you started to learn to play the cello in 5th grade. And because she said, I would have learned so much. As a parent, I would have learned so much along with you, and it would have been really helpful because she was not a musician and she didn't have music lessons growing up. So, it would have been a great thing.
Yes. And as you know, and I've attended, I think, all of them for the past 2 years, the parents, the mom or the dad or the grandparents come up after we've finished the program very often and will engage you with some questions or the guest musicians. And it is just so much fun to see that. It's been a wonderful program. It's been very popular. We started last year, our first year, only with Petoskey or at Petoskey Public Library. Last year, we expanded that to Boyne City Library. And we have had a request from Charlevoix Library for this coming season. We will have to see, of course, what happens with COVID and the restrictions and quarantine and all of that, but we're certainly planning for another wonderfully engaging season again this year. We're so grateful to have you part of this and leading this for us and liaison with the musicians. Great Lakes Chamber Orchestra musicians are the guests in this program, so that's really wonderful. You know, Lynne, with all your experience and with the changes that we experience in the world, and what do you think, how do you feel about what does the education of the next generation musicians look like? Do you have any ideas?
That's such a timely question, Judy, because just yesterday I saw in the news that a city in Massachusetts has already canceled all of their art and music classes for their public schools next year. They've
No.
already let all of those teachers go in those areas. And
Oh my gosh.
yeah, it's so distressing. I hope that's not the wave of the future.
Yeah.
All research shows that music and art and physical education classes and dance classes all enhance general learning. So it's the cooperation that you learn working with others. It's the fine and gross motor control. It's the literature. It's when you're reading music, you're tracking. It also helps tracking when you read, letters and words. There's so much research out there that proves again and again that having music in your life and art really enhances all areas of learning. So this is completely backwards to
Yes.
let those teachers go first. And it's art and music are such a great way for kids to learn to express themselves. And often kids who may not be good in other areas find that this is a way they can excel. This is a way they can express themselves.
Yes.
And so it's really, really important. And, we know that throughout history, what remains of a civilization is what they leave with art and music. I mean, that really is what remains. That's what we study, in humanities. So
You're right.
I don't know, very disheartening. I do think that the future for young musicians who want to be professional musicians is going to be very different. When I graduated from college in the 1970s, we were tracked to either perform professionally or to teach. And there were orchestras out there. My first job was with the Arkansas Symphony. My second job was with the Savannah Symphony. Well, the Savannah Symphony doesn't even exist anymore. The smaller regional orchestras have so many financial difficulties, and they no longer exist. So even though there are thousands of young musicians graduating every year from conservatories and colleges and universities, those jobs aren't out there. And it's a different world because nowadays you really have to be able to engage with your community. You have to be tech savvy. We're figuring that out right now.
We're figuring that out as our most live performing organizations. And
Right.
Lynne, I don't think this is going to stop. When we go back into the concert hall, I think that we are fully prepared to continue some of these online programs that we have developed as a result of this crisis. The Young Children's Library series, we will probably be getting together soon to start developing a plan for next season. What that is going to look like, I don't know, but we certainly, again, you just talked about technology. If we are not in the libraries physically, we could certainly do a program via Zoom or via the website, or an online kind of program to stay connected with our young budding musicians that we have been in touch with for the past 2 years. I also want to make sure that everybody knows the Young Children's Library series is open to anybody. We are all young at heart, aren't we? So the library series, it's at 10:30 on Saturday mornings at the Petoskey Library. And we are at 1 o'clock in the afternoon at Boyne City Library. And as I said earlier, we're looking to develop a presence in Charlevoix at the Charlevoix Library too. And we felt it was important to choose a comfortable setting and environment where these youngsters, these very young children, are very comfortable running into the library and running into their special children's room and feeling very comfortable there. So the library setting has worked out well. And of course, they're wonderful partners in this music program that we have developed. Lynn, I want to thank you so much for being my guest today on Tuesday Talks, but most especially for just being really the heart and soul of our Young Children's Library series. You have just lent so much knowledge and expertise and experience and wisdom in being able to roll with whatever audience we get that day. And
That's right.
right, and you know that it varies from 10 or 12 or 15 to, I think we had about 50 one time. And there are moms that bring babies in arms, and of course, and so everyone is welcome. And even children who are 60, 70, or 80, children at heart, right, are all welcome to our Young Children's Library program. And I am so pleased that we're able to bring this program forward to many of you today in our audience that might not be aware of some of the educational outreach programs that the Great Lakes Chamber Orchestra is doing. So once again, Lynn, I thank you so much for being here with us today and for being such a big part of our Young Children's Library series.
Well, thank you, Judy. I appreciate your vision. It's a pleasure working with you. I look forward to whatever the future looks like, and can't wait to get back at it. So thanks for having me. Tuesday Talks are fun.
Thank you.